Rise of the Ronin comes from Team Ninja, the makers of Nioh and Ninja Gaiden, which are both great action games, and this is their most ambitious game to date. It's their first open world game, it's a PS5 exclusive, and it's not for me. I've really only played through the first few hours, so this is definitely just my impressions rather than a full review. Of course, who knows, maybe after a few more hours with it, things will start to click, but I've honestly been struggling to make myself go back in for more. On the surface, it very much reminds me of two games I love deeply, so it should be my jam. I'll give you 1 second to guess what those games are. If you guessed Sekiro and Ghost of Tsushima, congratulations. Although maybe you guessed Assassin's Creed 2 too, which is also correct. I will say I don't think this is a bad game, but it's a game that just hasn't got under my skin. It's just not clicking for me. Story-wise, the characters in the world haven't really drawn me in. It's certainly a fascinating time period for a game to explore, with modern Western influences creeping into traditional Japanese culture. But the plot just really hasn't grabbed me, and the cast of characters I've met, no one's very memorable. Cutscenes just leave me tuning out.
Sorry about all that. My memory is pretty hazy.
I do like that there is some choice along the way, which is always cool to have. You can save this guy in a mission or kill him, and that has consequences that play out. And throughout the game you can side with pro or anti-shogun forces in various missions, so perhaps things get more interesting further down as you shape the story more, but so far I just haven't felt invested. The graphics are probably one of its weakest spots too. It's just pretty bland. There is some nice moments found out in the world for sure, like the sun setting as I strolled through cherry blossom lined streets, or Mount Fuji looming over the landscape as I ride through the countryside. That can all be very pleasant, but the color palette, the lighting, and the overall detail just feels flat and muted. It just didn't impress me, and I don't think it's going to impress many people. It all just kind of feels a little bit, it's not a world I want to explore. The combat does certainly have a lot of depth, and I definitely think that's the thing that's going to keep people interested. It borrows a lot from the Nioh games, and it's very Souls-like with a stamina or ki meter, and the focus is very much on blocking and countering and draining your opponent's ki meter to open them up for big hits while making sure you don't run out of your own. Which is all fine, I like that you have to be considered and thoughtful with your attacks and blocks, and button mashing tends to get you punished hard. There's also a bit of range stuff with guns, pistols and shurikens and bows and arrows, but I don't know, they all felt kind of bad to use. Maybe I'm using them wrong, but I just didn't really find they were helpful in combat that often. It also can just feel like there's a lot going on in the combat. There's multiple characters you can swap between, different stances which are stronger or weaker against other stances, different special abilities, and I don't know, it just kept layering on these new things which felt like they got in the way of the basics, which I thought were quite good. One thing that isn't very Souls-like is the fact that there are difficulty options, and I did find lowering the difficulty did actually make the combat feel a bit more fast-paced and exciting to me, but it still just wasn't a combat system I found myself falling in love with. Still, even with difficulty options, it is going for a Souls-like feel. It has that Souls-like save system with sort of bonfire-esque save points, and vendettas where you drop your XP and have to go and get it back, and even on the easiest option, it still puts up a pretty tough challenge. But it just didn't have that hook of a good Souls-like. I wasn't getting that feeling of being lost in some gorgeously twisted world, and just redoing fights felt like hard work rather than feeling like a rewarding challenge that I wanted to go back in for another go at. The open world is full of usual stuff to do, you can clear areas of bandits which bring people and shops back, there are side quests, and finding cats as collectibles is a lovely touch. You'll also find a whole bunch of mini-games scattered throughout the world, it's open world stuff. There is also a great auto-run feature too, where you can just select anywhere on the map and it will automatically run you there. It's a nice feature, although it doesn't always work great. There is also 4-player co-op, which I didn't get a chance to test. Every game is always better with friends, so it's a great feature to have. Overall, I will say, it does feel like an ambitious game. There's certainly a lot of game here, it's trying to do a lot. There's lots of gear and skills and RPG stuff to get stuck into, a big open world to explore, and it doesn't really fail at anything. It just feels a bit dated, and feels like a lesser version of other things I've already played. It's like if I didn't know any better, someone could tell me this was some PS3 game, and I'd believe them and even think it's a bit of an old gem, but it's just a bit bland now in the year 2024. Maybe if you go into it with those sorts of expectations, you'll find a lot to like. But this just wasn't one for me, I couldn't get into it. What about you though? Are you picking this one up? Have you played it already and think I'm just totally missing the mark on this? Or did you get the same vibe as me? Let me know. I feel like this one could be divisive, so I'm keen to hear what everyone else thinks.